Okay, so this whole section is on dividing polynomials and the remainder and factor theorem. Today, we're just going to do the dividing part. Tomorrow, we'll do the theorems. All right, so the first two, we're going to divide by long division. And so I want you to try to remember long division, like maybe 6th grade when you were doing it with numbers. But we're going to actually end up dividing with polynomials, but the steps are exactly the same. So if we were going to take 425 and divide it by 3, what is your first step?
See how many times the 3 goes into 4.
Right, and that is called the division step. So first step is to divide. So 3 will go into 4 one time, so we put a 1 up there. Okay, let's do that step with polynomial division. Okay, so to set it up, the divisor is what you're dividing by. And so it goes in the front. And this is called the dividend, and it goes underneath. All right, so when we do the division step on polynomial long division, we only care about the first terms. All right, so for now, we're going to kind of ignore the -1 in the divisor and then the 7x squared, all that. We're only going to focus on 6x cubed divided by 2x. All right, so you can actually think about that as 6x cubed divided by 2x. Or you can ask yourself, like she said, kind of what do you multiply 2x by to get 6x cubed?
3x.
Yes. And so I like to keep everything lined up. And so I would put that 3x squared in the x above the x squared term. All right, let's go back to our numbers one. All right, so after you get that 1 on the top, what do you do next? You have to do something before you subtract. Multiply. So 1 times 3 is 3. All right, so we're going to do that on this side also. Now we have to, on this, we do have to distribute. All right, so we multiply the 3x squared by the 2x, and that's going to give you 6x cubed. And we multiply the 3x squared by the -1. And that's going to give you minus 3x squared. That's super important on that step that you keep your like terms lined up. So you write the x cubed under the x cubed and the x squared under the x squared. All right, let's go back to our numbers. Okay, so after you multiply, then what do? This is where you subtract. Now, if you're going to mess up on polynomial division, it's probably on the subtraction step. So we have to make sure that we subtract both terms. So we're going to have to make sure we change both signs. Right. So we're going to subtract this 6x cubed, but we're also going to subtract negative 3x squared. All right, so what I do is I change the sign and I circle it so I remember that I did it. Because like I said, if you're going to mess up, it's going to be in this step, I'm guessing. Because that's how you subtract.
Are you adding 3x or are you subtracting?
Well, you are subtracting negative 3x, which is the same as adding 3x. All right, so the first term has to cancel out or something went wrong. It does, so we're good. And then we have 7x squared plus 3x squared is 10x squared. Okay, Now let's go back to our numbers. What would we do now?
Bring up to.
Bring down. So in this case, we're going to bring down minus 9x. And then you're going to repeat. You're going to go through all the steps again. Right. So on this divide step, make sure when we do the divide step that we are looking at the first terms only. So when we're doing our divide step on this one, it's 10x squared divided by 2x. Or what do you multiply 2x by to get 10x squared?
5x.
And that's going to be 5x. So we'll put it above the x term. Okay, then we'll do our multiply step. So we'll take that 5x and we're going to multiply it by 2x, which is going to give us 10x squared. And then we do the 5x times negative 1. It's minus 5x. And then don't forget, on this subtract step, we're subtracting 10x squared. We're also subtracting negative 5x. So to do that, we change both of the signs. Right? The 10x squares cancel out like they're supposed to. Negative 9x plus 5x is negative 4x. Right? Bring down. And then do it all again. All right, you guys do that last step on the last cycle on your own, please. Okay, and this one you do get a remainder of 0, which is kind of nice. It's one less thing you have to worry about. But that answer at the top is the answer. That's your quotient. That's what you get when you divide. Right. We're going to do another long division, and then we'll talk about synthetic division. Okay, so this time our divisor is x squared plus 2, and we're dividing that into 9x cubed plus 4x squared plus 8x plus 6. Now I didn't put any like this on these examples, but if like it went from x cubed to x, you would want to fill in a 0 x squared, or if it went from x squared to the constant, you'd want to fill in a 0 x, because you have to keep those like terms lined up. So if one's missing, you're probably going to need it in the problem. So just be careful on that. Okay, so our division step, we ask ourselves, what do you multiply x squared by to get 9x cubed? 9x. So I'm going to put it above my x term. Then I'm going to distribute it. So multiply 9x by x squared. Multiply 9x by 2. Now be really careful that you put that in the right column. So that gives you 18x. So you write it under the x's. You don't write it under the x squared. Right, so when we subtract, we're going to change both signs. Okay, so we can think of there being like a 0 right there, or a 0x squared. So when I do 4x squared minus 0x squared, that is going to give us 4x squared. Right, and then 8x minus 18x is negative 10x. And then we need to bring down the 6. And then we'll do it again. All right, so you ask yourself, what do you multiply x squared by to get 4x squared? It's going to be 4. Right, and then we'll actually multiply it. And then make sure that we subtract 4x and we subtract 8. Okay, and this time we do get a remainder. Do you guys remember what to do with it?
Set it over x squared plus 2.
Very good. So it gets kind of added on the end of your answer, of your quotient. So it's going to be plus. And then you put it over the divisor. I don't know if you guys can see that. So add it at the end and put it over the divisor. That's your answer.
So can you do any simplification with that, or is that simple?
Now, this is the simplest you could get. So for you to be able to simplify that, they would have to have a common factor, and they don't. X squared plus 2 won't factor at all. Okay, that's long division. It's not terrible. It takes a while, and there's a lot of little places for you to make a mistake, but that's long division. Now, synthetic division is way faster. The problem with it is it's very limited. We could not do synthetic division on either one of those. So we do need to know both ways. But synthetic division you can use if the divisor is something like x plus 3 or x minus 5. So the coefficient of x is 1 and the exponent is 1. So example 1 wouldn't work because your coefficient is 2. And then example 2 wouldn't work because your exponent is 2. You're dividing by an x squared. So now we're going to do the problem, and I'll say all these things, and we'll go back and fill in the blanks because I don't want y'all flipping over your page like over and over and over again. And maybe you'll remember it. Okay, so here we go. On example 3, I'm dividing by x minus 6. So I can do synthetic division because the coefficient of x is 1 and there's not a power. The power is 1. Okay, so synthetic division, you have this little box like that. Well, that's the way I do it. Do you remember what's going to go in the box in this case? It's positive 6. So it's basically whatever is going to make your divisor 0. So because that was a minus 6, it's going to be plus. It's going to be positive 6. Right. Then to the right of the box, we're going to fill in all the coefficients and the constant of the divisor. Now it's the dividend. So it's super important if something is skipped that we do fill in a 0. So we started off as x to the 4th, and then it had an x to the 3rd. What should be next?
X to the 2nd.
Right. So we would fill in a 0 for x to the 2nd. What should be next? X. There's not one. So we fill in a 0 for x, and then we have our constant. You have to do that. If you don't do that, you're doing the wrong problem. You have to put the 0 in, and you have to put it in the correct place, or it's just going to be wrong. All right, so once we get those zeros, we write our coefficients, all those, and the constant to the right of this box. Now, I always kind of check myself because I think it's easy to make a mistake on synthetic division because it goes so fast, you just make a mistake. But anyway, if this has a power of 4, after the box, there should be 5 numbers. If there's not, you're doing the wrong problem. Okay, so what we're going to do first is bring down that first coefficient. We're going to bring down 10. And then from here, it's just multiply and add over and over again. So we multiply the number in the box by the number under the line, and that's going to be 60. You write it underneath the next number, and then you're going to add, and you're going to get 10. And then you're going to do it again. You multiply the number in the box by the number under the line, which is 60 again, and then you add. Right? And then just keep multiplying and adding. Now, you might need a calculator on some of these. Like I made a worksheet out of the old book, and some of the problems you just get these really big numbers. So you might know 6 times 360 in your head. If you don't, it's okay. You have a little calculator that'll do it for you, but that's 2,160. And then when you add, you get 1,360. Now, your final answer, has to look like what we got before. So our answers should look like these things. So what are those numbers? The coefficients and the constant and the remainder of the answer. So how do you know what x's go with those coefficients? It's one less, right? So if this dividend started off as x to the fourth, your answer should be, the first one should be x to the third. So it's going to be 10x to the third, and then plus 10x squared plus 60x plus 360 plus the remainder over the divisor. And your divisor this time was that x minus 6. So that is synthetic division. It's faster. Okay, I'm going to go back and fill in the blanks. In case you just completely forget, you can go back to these steps and hopefully it'll trigger some memories. It's a very thorough steps. There's a whole lot of words here. It's hard to explain synthetic division in words. It's easier just to see it. All right, so the root or 0 of the divisor goes in the box. But basically what you guys usually think of is just the opposite. Right? Then the coefficients and constant of the dividend go to the right of the box. Now this stuff is important. Be sure to fill in a 0 for any term that was skipped. And just because of the way synthetic division works, if you don't do that, you are doing the wrong problem. Right, then we're going to leave a space for some numbers that we're going to write in a second, and then draw a line. Right, and then we bring down the first number to the right of the box. So the first coefficient you bring down, and then you multiply the number in the box by the number under the line. And then write it under the next number. And then you add. Right. Continue to multiply and add. Okay. And then the numbers under the line are the coefficients, constant, and remainder of the answer or the quotient. Right. The last number is going to be the remainder. And then the degree of the answer or the quotient is 1 less than the degree of the dividend. Okay, so we're going to do one more, and then you guys are going to have some time to work. Yes, ma'am.
Right above the box, what are the two ways that fill in those blanks? As x has that coefficient and x will have one.
I don't know what you're talking about. You got it? Okay. All right. Oh, and I just did this. I didn't say it. I will always put like this little divider line for the remainder. The remainder ends up being really important for a lot of the stuff we're going to do with synthetic division. So I just kind of always divide it out or separate it from the others. Okay. So let's do another one. What do you guys notice about your dividend here? It's out of order. So it's important that you fill in zeros for things that are missed. It's also important that your coefficients are in descending order, because if they're not, again, you're doing the wrong problem. All right, what number are we going to put in the box? Not 2, -2. Okay, and then make sure these coefficients are in the correct order. It's the x cubed, then the x squared, then the x, then the constant. And then we're going to bring down the 4 and then just start multiplying and adding. Okay. So these are our coefficients and our constant and our remainder. So what is the first term going to be? 4x squared. And then we're not going to have an x term. It's just going to be missing. And then we have -9. And then we're also not going to have a remainder. So that's it. Okay. Any questions? All right. So I'm going to give you guys a worksheet that we're going to use for 2 days. So today I only want you guys to do 1 through 8. And I'm pretty sure I posted the answers.